The Angels beat a good team in their division last night, and that's the formula for success. And we're going to recap Game 1 against the Astros, and we're going to share a couple of things that the Halos need to clean up if they want to continue to win. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere that you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now on Sirius XM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
Hey, my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
You've got the #1 daily Los Angeles Angels podcast here Monday through Friday. It's our second year here at Locked On Angels, and we're happy to be here with you. Hey, Locked On Everydayers, don't forget that Fan Mail Friday is coming up. There's an off day on Thursday, Mike, so we can do 3 segments of Fan Mail Friday on Friday. We already got some good questions, some voicemails, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from our Locked On Angels listeners and viewers. So get your questions in at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, or give us a call on our voicemail line, which is in the episode description. On today's show, we're taking a look at the pitching philosophy of the Halos. Is it a one-size-fit-all approach? And then ask the question, is Tyler Anderson a bust? Bust. Is he a bust, Mike? We'll talk about that, but let's talk about the big win as the Angels open up at home against the Astros for a 3-game set, and they took the win 6-4, Michael.
Yeah, and I think this game, actually, the win started before the game actually started. Are you following me?
Yeah, it's like I was talking about on yesterday's show. The Angels are putting themselves in a position to lose before the first pitch.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by that, though? Because I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so on Bally Sports West, Erica Weston, who is awesome, she reported that the Angels infielders had extra work before the game, and they were emphasizing focus. Focus, Danielson, focus. And she added that Benji Gil was working with the infielders, and he told them, if you want to win it all, you have to show me that you're willing to do everything that you can.
Yeah.
And I love that. I know some people have said Benji probably would make a really great manager, unsure of what his role will be next year, unsure of what Phil Nevin's role will be next year if they have to make a move. I think Benji Gil is somebody that they should consider. Totally. And I love that he was working with them before the game. And then we saw that, not necessarily in the first couple of innings, John, but from like inning 3 on, this team turned it back on. They looked like the team that played the Cardinals and not the team that played the Rangers the last 2 days. And what I loved about this game is that your boy, Brandon Drury, came through and helped the Angels get a victory. So it's tied 4-4. He comes up with a runner on, and he hits a shot to center field. And then that ball bounced around. It bounced far away from the center fielder. And I had a moment where I thought maybe he would actually make it all the way around. And then I remembered, he's Brandon Drury. So he made it to third base, which was awesome. RBI triple, gave the Angels the lead. And then immediately Matt Thaiss hits a sacrifice fly and gets an add-on run. And that's the thing that I think helps this pitching staff and helps the bullpen specifically when they have add-on runs.
Is there anything you want to say to Matt Thaiss, Michael?
I already apologized. I already
yeah, but
said
now he's hitting 300, so you have to apologize again.
Listen, those great theologians, Nirvana said all apologies, and I'm going to continue to give all apologies, and I'm going to say I'm sorry. Johnny, I just want you to talk about your boy Sandy. He didn't get the win, but he did something that I really appreciate. He grinded, and he gave 6 1/3 solid innings last night. And that's what you want from a starting pitcher. He wasn't picky. Something you talked about on yesterday's show is pitch to contact. And he did that, John.
Yeah, he only had 2 strikeouts in this game, Mike, and 0 walks, which is always great when you're Patrick Sandoval. There were 7 hits, 4 runs. He gave up a cookie to the number 9 hitter on the Astros.
Yeah, and he knew it as soon as he let it go. Yeah.
It was a changeup, just smack dab. Here you go, have one. And so he was frustrated with himself about that one. I think he would only blame himself for that. How about Matt Moore, man? The guy comes in,
unreal,
and he's getting 1 2/3 innings pitched. He comes in after Patrick Sandoval, no hits, no runs, 1 strikeout. Mike, in exactly 1 perfect ERA,
Yeah.
1.0.
Him and Carlos Estevez have been awesome at the end of this bullpen. Carlos, I think, has a 1.02 ERA or
Something
1.08,
crazy.
something like that.
Yeah.
But he got his 8th save in 8 chances. And I just put a note here in our notes, Johnny. Carlos, you tell Phil Nevin when you're going to go and pitch.
Yeah,
like,
no kidding.
You just let him know when you're ready to go.
You're in charge here.
I love that. And I love that he is so good for us at the end of this bullpen. And then Astros, Johnny, didn't get a hit after Jordan had that double and then, single, and then he got thrown out at second base by Hunter Renfroe.
Yeah, what are you doing? Don't challenge Renfroe.
He forgot who he was, and he forgot who
not
Hunter
Taylor
was.
Ward this year, right?
Right, and that 5th inning was the last time that they got a hit, John, and so this team really shut them down after that, and they needed that, and I feel like they needed this win. And what I loved about the offense is that they came after Hunter Brown, who is having a pretty good year. And this was the shortest outing of the year for him. He only had 3 whiffs, those swinging strikes, and he allowed 11 hard hit balls at 95 miles an hour plus. And so the Angels were hitting him really, really hard.
Mike, Hunter Brown in 52 innings of major league pitching had not given up a home run. And so there was Hunter on Hunter crime happening because Hunter Renfroe is the one who hit that home run to start the game. Again, Ohtani had 2 RBIs here, Drury with an RBI, Matt Thaiss, of course, and Hunter Renfroe. And my boy, Anthony Rendon, also came through with an RBI. He was actually the one on base when Drury hit that triple, so he had to run from first to home on that one, which is awesome to see.
Yeah.
Mike, regarding Hunter Renfroe, I know he hit that home run, but here's a lot of stats we've got here regarding his opportunities with runners on base. He's got some interesting situational hitting stats from this year. Why don't you talk about those?
Yeah, he's the last 2 games, I think, the volume's kind of been turned up on Hunter Renfroe not coming through when necessary, right? Like in the game on the 7th, he had a pop out with a runner at second. He had a sac fly with the bases loaded. He grounded out. He had a fly out to second base with the bases loaded. Then he hits a home run with no runners on. And then last night's game, hits a home run with no runners on, strikes out looking with 2 runners on, and then grounds into a double play with 2 runners on. And so fans are like, come on, Hunter, you got to come through, right? And I'm with them. I would love to see him come through. Here's some interesting stats. His productive out percentage this year is 25%. His career is actually 24, and the MLB average is 27.
Productive out being something that positive happens when...
Yes, moving a runner over and those types of things, right?
Okay.
Base runner scored percentage, so he actually makes contact and a base runner scores. It's 13% for him. His career is 15, and the MLB average is 14. So he, again, is kind of right in line where he normally is.
Okay.
And then with plate appearances with no outs and a runner at second base, advancing percentage or maybe scoring percentage, he's around 50%. His career is 41%, and MLB average is 51%. So again, he's performing a little bit above what he normally does, average for a baseball player. Here's, I think, what we're seeing. His plate appearances with less than 2 outs and a runner on third base scored percentage.
That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. But he's right now at 38%, and he normally averages around 52%, and MLB average is 50. So I think what we're seeing is in those situations, we're seeing a lot more of those situations, and that's where he has failed the most. And so we have every right to be frustrated, because if we're going to demand that Shohei and Trout come through for us, Hunter Renfroe needs to come through. And I love home runs. Home runs are great, but I call it the Howie Kendrick effect. I loved Howie Kendrick, but Howie always hit a home run when they were up 12-1 or down 12-1, right? At the end of the year, he's hitting 340 with 21 home runs and 85 RBIs, right? Like, and you're like, what a great year. How come we didn't win? Well, often it came in garbage time, or it came when we were crushing the other team. And so I think that it's those moments we've seen in the last 2 games that we're like, Hunter, you got to come through for us in those moments. And these numbers kind of play out when he's coming through and when he's not coming through.
Absolutely. One last thing here is that the Halos pitching with 2 strikes are giving up the most hits this season, Mike. They lead the league. There's 22 opportunities where they had 2 strikes on a hitter and they gave it up. The Angels have 22. The Orioles have 17. The Braves and the Reds have 14. So the Angels have 8 more than the Braves and the
Yeah.
Reds and 5 more than the Orioles. That's going to kill you if you don't clean it up. And we've seen that come into play, especially in Reed Detmers' start the other day as well. So that's something that they need to clean up. I do appreciate the conversation that Benji Gil had with those guys. Again, like you said, that's how you set this team up for success before first pitch. And I loved that they had that conversation. Hey, the Angels are 20-16, Mike, 2 games out of first behind the Texas Rangers, who almost got perfect gamed / no hit against the Mariners and Logan Gilbert, who I actually like Logan Gilbert a lot.
Yeah.
The Angels play the Astros again at 6:38 Pacific time tonight. Mike, it's Ohtani versus Framber Valdez. It's going to be a big-time matchup on the mound. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with the SiriusXM app on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, is Tyler Anderson a bust or just a disappointment? We're going to talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. Grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back and in season, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. You can't lose there. And so don't miss your chance at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. Locked On Everydayers, again, join us for Fan Mail Friday. On Friday, get your questions into us today and the rest of the week. And don't forget that the Angels play the Astros again tonight at 6:38 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels.
Johnny, Sam Blum had a really great article in The Athletic, and Sam is a fan of the show, and we're fans of Sam. And he recently interviewed Aaron Loup to discuss his struggles that he's been having on the mound. So I want to read a couple of quotes, and then I want you to share some statistics with the nerds out there. So Aaron Loup pointed out to a shift in pitch usage that's been at the heart of some of his struggles. So he's 35 years old. He's relied heavily on his off-speed pitches this year. His curveball usage is up from 2.8% last year to, get this, 13.2% this year.
Whew.
His changeup is up from 12.5% to 23.6% this year. And his fastball and his sinker have taken significant dips. The reason, Loup said, is based on a larger team philosophy, and this is something Johnny will talk about in a minute. The new shift rules, he said, have led to teams emphasizing off-speed pitches more and more swing and misses. They're trying to get more swing and misses. And for Loup, the results haven't really been great. We've all seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And his swing and miss is below his career average. He said the emphasis on off-speed pitches has been a mixture of his choice and partially team dictated. Quote from him, "I've always been a guy that relied on my fastball more than anything else. And so this year, I think I've been a little bit off-speed heavy, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm struggling. I don't think it's all of that, but that's part of the reason." So, Johnny, this brings up an interesting question. Are the Angels applying a one-size-fits-all philosophy to their pitching staff, and they're trying to emphasize swing and miss over contact?
I could understand the reasoning behind that, considering the shift rules and that you can't shift on somebody anymore. So defensive plays are going to be that much more difficult. But Mike, if the Angels apply this to every single pitcher that they have, it's not going to work. You can't operate and force people. You can't fit a round. What's the phrase? A square peg into a round hole. Thank you. Thank you. I'm still reeling off the wind tonight. So, but all that to say, you can't force a philosophy on somebody if it's not going to work and take away what's been successful for them in the past. Listen to this.
Yeah.
Aaron Loup threw 51.9% sinkers and 32.9% cutters in 2021. And every time we talk Aaron Loup, we reference that 2021 season because that was the incredible season he had before he signed with the Angels. Last year, 48.4% sinkers and 36% cutters in 2022. Now, Mike, 37.4% sinkers and 18.1% cutters in 2023. That's about 15 points of percentage less than the number of sinkers he was throwing and in 2021 and the cutter as well. So it's way down over that time. The article says it's a mixture of his choices and partially team dictated. And honestly, the results kind of indicate that mixture because they're very mixed results. Now, listen to this. His strikeout percentage was 26.2 in 2021. This year, it's 16.3. So that's down 10%. However, the hard hit percentage and the exit velocity are both down from 2021 in 2023. So he's not getting hit as hard. The exit velocity is down, but his strikeout percentage is down too. So theoretically, normally that's a good thing when you have a guy whose hard hit and exit velocity percentages are down. But if you're trying to get swings and misses, it's going to result in a higher walk rate. And it has with Aaron Loup in 22 and over 21. This year, his walk rate is much higher than it has been in the past. And that's because he's trying to get those swings and misses.
This is interesting, John, because you're going to take someone like Aaron Loup and you're going to have him adjust to something that you think will be successful versus where he's been successful. Do you think that, and we're going to talk about Tyler Anderson in the next segment, but do you think that this has actually impacted Tyler Anderson? And my boy, Reed Detmers looks a bit different this year as well.
Yeah, so regarding Tyler Anderson, there's just a few things we'll point out. Well, we've got a deeper dive into his stuff next segment. But when you compare his percentile rankings from this year to last year, Mike, he was getting a 37% whiff rate. This year, it's up to 64. But here's the thing. Back in 2022, his walk rate was way down. He was in the 91st percentile in walk rate. And this year, he's in the 27th percentile. He's throwing a lot more walks. His hard hit percentage was 98 percentile last year. That means he's not giving up a lot of hard hit contact. This year, it's still decent. It's at 61. Average exit velocity, 98th percentile last year. This year, it's down to the 75th percentile. The chase rate last year, Mike, surprisingly, 95 percentile. This year, 33 percentile. So you can see these small ways in which Tyler Anderson has been affected by this. Again, the barrel percentage last year, not getting hard hit at all, 86 percentile. This year, he's in the 40th percentile, so he's getting more barreled up as he pitches. And so that change in philosophy, you can see it in his percentile rankings on StatCast. Big difference between this year and last year.
Yeah, and when you're talking about Reed Detmers, one of the things that I've said on this pod is it feels like Reed and Patrick Sandoval have switched bodies because Reed is now trying to get a lot of swings and misses.
Yeah.
And Patrick, as an example of last night, he's really pitching to contact, and he has in the last few games because he's not really striking out a lot of guys. But when I look at the stats, it looks like Reed is kind of following this philosophy, and it's not actually doing him much good, is it?
No, not so far. I mean, he seems to be able to get guys out on like the curveball and the slider, which is great. I mean, the results that the team want are there. His K percentage and his whiff percentage are both up from 2022. The slider and fastball usage are both about 40%, but the slider this year, Mike, is actually harder. You know that there's a higher velo on it now, but the movement is down because it's being thrown harder. And this actually has resulted in a higher expected batting average when it's hit. It was 204 in 2022 versus 230 this year. But I think regarding Reed Detmers and the swing and miss philosophy, his issue seems to be a matter of location and also not getting those outs on 0-2 counts like we talked about in the last segment. In 13 plate appearances, batters are hitting 500 against him when they are in an 0-2 count. So there's been 13 opportunities where it's been 0-2 for Reed Detmers, and he's given a hit up half the time there. And so all of that to say, if he has switched from, I won't necessarily say he switched from being a contact guy, but I think the emphasis on swing and miss across the board has caused him to try and be a swing and miss guy. And it's causing him not to locate as well because that's where he's getting hit the most. So, Mike, is this swing and miss philosophy, is it helping or hurting? What do you think?
I think it's It's 50-50, John. And why I would say that is because look at what happens in Reed Detmer's starts in the first few innings. He looks
Tons
incredible.
of Ks.
He looks incredible, right? But then it's also not so great because he's already at 50 to 60 pitches.
No longevity. Yeah.
And he can't go further than 4 1/3. And it looks like he's getting tired. And I don't know if it's tired, or I don't know if he loses focus, or I don't know if he's still trying to do what he's doing. It might be that he's trying to follow the philosophy, and your fastball isn't going to be as effective because you're losing a couple of miles per hour velo. Maybe your slider doesn't have the bite that it has on it, right? What's interesting about this, John, is it doesn't feel like Sandy or even Ohtani is following this.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Griffin Canning is even following this.
Right.
It feels like they have a little bit more freedom. And then a guy like Tyler Anderson, who's coming off a really great year, and then Reed Detmers, who is somebody that we think is going to be fantastic for us for many seasons to come, are following this philosophy, and it's not really having a great impact. And I wonder if this actually, well, it does, because we just talked about Aaron Loup. This actually impacts the bullpen as well. And I wonder if this is why we've seen some really good moments from Jaime Barria and some not really good moments from Jaime Barria. I wonder if this is what's happening in the bullpen. And quite frankly, I wonder if Estevez and Moore are like, we're going to do what we do that got us here. And if I'm going to lead this team, if I'm Phil Nevin, I'm giving full permission to my guys to be who they are. I'm going to give them the information. I want to have a great conversation with them. But then the last words I'm going to say to them is, guys, I trust you.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to walk away because I think that that's the thing that these players need to hear, because they made it here because they're good. And this philosophy can help them to be better. But I think that when the philosophy and the stats are leading the way and not the talent, then you're finding yourself upside down in your coaching and in your management.
And it feels like that's been the trajectory since the beginning of April when they started this season, right? It's not being led by the data and the analytics, or I should say, it's not being led by decisions. It's being led by the data and analytics, and that's only recently flipped. I think somebody like Carlos Estevez is a good example of, hey, Carlos, we noticed that you get lots of swings and misses on your fastball when it's at the top of the zone or above. Why don't you try that out? So he did in spring training, and that's been an effective pitch for him. And that's an example of this actually working. But that's as far as it should go. Find what's successful. Let the pitcher decide if it's going to be successful for them. And if it works, then the proof is in the pudding. And Carlos Estevez is an example of that. But if it's not working for other guys, don't try to make them fit into this philosophy.
All right, speaking of pitching, let's talk about Tyler Anderson. We signed him to a 3-year, $39 million deal, had a great season with the Dodgers last year. Prior to that, Johnny, he wasn't great. He was average. And with the Dodgers, they unlock something, and they have the tendency to unlock things in pitchers. So I looked at a few underlining numbers for him. You shared a bit in the last segment, but let me share these numbers with you. In 2022, his K per 9 average was 6.9. His walks per 9 was 1.7, and his homers per 9 was 0.7. This year, his Ks per 9 is 6.8, so about where he was last year. His walks per 9 are 4.5, and his homers per 9 is 1.7.
Oh, wow.
So
a whole extra home run.
You see some of the differences in how he's performing. When it comes to what he can control, his FIP, fielding independent percentage, he was pitching 3.31 last year, 6.10 this year. BABIP, batting average for balls in play, last year 256, this year 306. So the question really is he a bust? Like what's going on with him? I think what these stats say, there's 3 layers to this, Johnny. One, Anderson is hurting himself by walking a lot of batters.
Sure.
And it probably has to do with the philosophy, and it probably has to do with he's wanting to really perform, right? Second thing, Anderson is losing control over the things that are under his control.
Oh, that's smart.
The FIP last year versus the FIP this year, it's almost 3 points higher this year. Yeah. And then Anderson is getting hit, and those balls are finding holes, and batters are getting on base. 256 last year, 306 this year. And how do those numbers compare to Anderson in previous years? Here's a couple of notes. He's always had issues with walks. Prior to being with the Dodgers, he had issues with walks. Anderson has always had a higher BABIP. He's always been around 300, so this year isn't unusual. Last year was an anomaly for him. And his FIP, although higher this year, has always been around 4.5. And so the conclusion that I come to, Johnny, is he's not a bust. He's just a disappointment.
Okay.
And I think that we can be disappointed in him because we thought he'd actually be a great arm for this rotation. Sure. I think that we can get Tyler back to the 2022 version if we do a couple of things. One, I think we got to ditch the philosophy with him. I think that we got to let him be who he is, give him the information, and then let him pitch. He's got to cut down on those walks. And I think that the philosophy that they're running with is causing him to maybe throw more pitches than he's normally used to.
Sure. And there's been errors and whatnot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the defense behind him and all of those things.
Right.
Second, when he's pitching to contact, and you read this in the last segment, his soft contact is always great. He's getting ground balls. But what I noticed is this year, his fly ball percentage is the highest of his career. And so something's changed in his location. And so he needs to figure that out. And then I think the third thing, and you mentioned it, play good defense behind this guy.
Yeah.
Because he always has a high ground ball rate. This year, it's 35%. It was over 40 last year.
Right.
And so I think that this is how Anderson can be fixed. And I think that if he works on these things, we could see a difference. Now, he's had a couple of great starts since the beginning of the year, and it looks like he's working on some things. I think calling somebody a bust over a period of 6 starts is really not fair, right?
Right.
It is May. And so I'd like to see where he's at the All-Star break. And I think that we can really kind of determine what kind of pitcher he will be for us this year. His numbers are lining up with who he was prior to the Dodgers, and the Dodgers really unlocked something special in him. And I think we can get back to that if he cuts down on walks, he's pitching to contact, and they're playing good defense behind him.
Mike, the emphasis on pitching right now in this league is obviously on velocity, right? And movement and things like that. Now, there is a world in which we're not seeing guys go 9 innings that much anymore, if at all. Like getting a complete game shutout is super rare. Getting a complete game is super rare. Nathan Eovaldi almost had one against us. He went 8 innings. Probably could have come out for the 9th if it hadn't have been such a long inning, right?
And it would have been back-to-back because he had a complete game shutout before that. So he figured out something in the last couple of games.
So all of that to say, I'm wondering when the league is going to start emphasizing length over velocity. And Tyler Anderson is somebody that you need on this team because he can be an innings eater. He can be somebody to go out there and get you 7, 8 innings and save your bullpen. Now, he hasn't done that so far. I think the furthest he's gotten is 6+ so far. But the way that you do that, and I think the league will start to try and figure out, is quick outs. You saw quick outs from Patrick Sandoval last night. Quick outs, not ones where you're getting deep into counts and then there's a strikeout or a fly out. It's a one-pitch ground out, it's a one-pitch fly out, that sort of thing.
And it's why he was able to come back out in the 7th inning, right?
That's
because
right.
He had 88 pitches. He was at 87, I think, and then he got a quick third out and was able to leave the inning in the 6th. So he was able to come into the 7th inning, which is awesome for this team because it shortens the bullpen and the roles that they're going to play.
So I'm wondering when the league will go from being fascinated with velocity, and obviously velocity and break and all that stuff is what makes an effective pitcher. However, you have to consider longevity. Mike, I tallied up how many arm, shoulder, and elbow injuries there have been. I tweeted that out at Locked On Angels, so check that out across the National League and the American League. And I actually had to add one more because of Houston, obviously having to deal with that as well. And it's all these really interesting injuries this season so far, considering these guys are throwing harder and they're under the pressure of the pitch clock. I don't know if that correlates together, but at the same time, you have to look at the league and go, well, what's new with the league? Obviously, there's some new rules there. So again, I think you go from velocity and break to longevity, and then how quickly can guys get quick outs? I think that's going to be the next step for the league when it comes to pitching.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Astros today at 6:38 Pacific time and specific time. It's Ohtani Day, and he's looking for his 5th win, and so there's always this expectation that the Angels are going to win. We can win the series. tonight. That'd be awesome. So catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
All right, if you haven't done so already, make sure you get at us at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, please comment below. We'd love to hear from you. We do our best to get to all of the comments below the video. And if you're on the audio side, come on over to YouTube and comment below. We'd love to hear from you as well. Hey, Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, Jared Walsh is one of our favorite players. And again, Sam Blum doing a great job, had a great interview with Walshy. And we learned about what he did to get right and to get healthy. So we're going to share all of those details with you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation. We hope that you'll join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for more Locked On Angels.